Joe Rogan impersonates Douglas Murray. So Joe Rogan sat down with Tim Dillon on his show and decided to poke some fun at former guest Douglas Murray, who was on the show with Dave Smith. Me personally, when I saw this clip for the first time, I didn't laugh as much as everybody else on social media because I thought this is kind of pussy shit. This is kind of some pussy shit from Rogan. Because if you're going to mock Douglas Murray for this sort of shit, then invite him on the show to defend himself, you know? Or basically address his criticisms, which I think, although I don't agree with his position, because Douglas Murray is a staunch Zionist and shit, and I don't really fuck with that stuff, you have to agree that Douglas Murray was a breath of fresh air because he stuck it on Rogan. He called out Rogan for essentially, not having any experts on his channel, which is true, and just allowing people to just speak nonsense on his channel when it's one of the biggest channels. No fact checking, no pushback, no anything, and also not having people from the other side, which I think is quite crucial to have a good and healthy, balanced debate. And if anything, although Douglas Murray was, talking a lot of shit, I think that made for one of the better episodes of Joe Rogan's experience, of the Joe Rogan experience, JRE. I think that was one of the best episodes in recent times because there were at least one person in that room that didn't agree with Joe Rogan. When it's just sycophants, when it's just people there, happy to be there, happy to kiss the ring, happy to kiss fucking Rogan's helmet and shit, the show's boring. It always has been like that. But when he has people on that are a bit combative, have their own points of view, are well versed in particular subject, can challenge his concept, whatever it may be, it was fucking brilliant. So it was great to see Douglas Murray essentially sparring two people at once and kind of calling out Rogan. So I thought Rogan mocking Douglas Murray like this to Tim Dillon was a little bit rich, considering that he never said this to Douglas Murray's face.
Have you been there?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is that the way
you should at least
can you just
have the
go
courtesy of going there?
Can I just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. It's very interesting, this war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this. Do I seem like a guy that has a lot of awards?
Didn't you get one of those YouTube plaques when you hit 100,000?
I don't even know where they send it. I don't know where they're sending those YouTube plaques.
We've got a few of those.
But I like this idea of war tourism. I like the idea of going to a war and then coming back having a very black and white view.
Yes, I've been there.
I get it, and I know, and interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I love that.
You feel better than the other people.
Well, of course, there's a lot of people. It gets very murky. Most people I know that have been to war have a very murky, complex view of things. But it is good to go to a war and then come back and be as sure as you were before you came.
And you don't have to go for very long.
No, you go for an hour.
Couple hours.
It's a lunch.
Yeah.
It's lunch on
Put
the
on
front
a
line.
flak jacket that says press.
Tea on the front lines, and then you come back and you have all the talk. Yeah.
I know Douglas Murray talks a lot of shit, but I'd much rather listen to him. I'd much rather take on what he has to say and consider his thoughts because he's actually been there than Rogan. Like, Rogan's scared to go to Canada. Come on. Rogan's scared to go to fucking Canada because what? He's afraid some purple-haired person is gonna run him down on the street or something. Like, he's a mad guy. So this mocking of Douglas Murray because he goes to these war-torn countries and reports from the front lines, or gets a better understand, or tries to go there to gain a better understanding. Maybe he does kind of sort of take on all of the propaganda. Maybe that's to be argued. But at least he's going there. At least he's trying to inform himself. At least he's trying to educate himself. At least he's trying to see it, with his own eyes, experience it, and then kind of give his own, interpretation of it. Maybe it's kind of funded by the IDF. Maybe it's written by, Benjamin Netanyahu's press officer. Who fucking knows? But at least he's going there. At least he is. So I find it rich that Rogan is taking a piss out of him for such a thing. And like I said, I find it rich too, considering that Douglas Murray was right there and Rogan and Dave Smith didn't really have much to say. Didn't really have much pushback. They were kind of gagged. to use a loose term, in terms of trying to reply back to Douglas Murray, who again you could easily clap back upon because he was, essentially, doing his application for Zionism right there on Rogan, but they didn't really have much to say because he was literally calling them out on some of their, blatant misinformation that they put out there, which, I don't know. I think the term misinformation is a little bit overused as well. I think there is some value. There is something to be gained from the fact that Rogan doesn't really see his show as big as people see it, right? I think people take his show more seriously than what he takes it. So I think he's allowed to be like, hey, this is just a show I do for fun. I talk to random people all the time. Don't take nothing too seriously. If you want to find out what's actually going on, do your own research type of thing. But I also understand people on the other side who are like, yeah, but you've also got one of the biggest shows in the world and people listen to what you say. So if you have people on who don't know what they're talking about, that could lead to people being misinformed and, dangerous things happening, blah, 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 blah. It's a bit, it's a bit rich, whatever it may be. But I did like the debate. Like, that's all I want personally. I don't really care what a person says. I want him to have everybody on. Like, I'm a believer in platforming anybody. This idea of like deplatforming people is fucking ridiculous anyway. Let everybody say what they want. I'm a big believer in letting dumb people say things aloud in public so that you can mock them and laugh at them and point and be able to call them out and see who the dumb person is. Refusing people a platform and stuff doesn't really help, especially nowadays. The more somebody's deplatformed, the more you basically just bolster them and add to their mythos and shit. So get everybody on. Get everybody, especially the Joe Rogan experience. It's dying. It's crying out for like opposing opinions. It's crying out for an episode where somebody comes on and says maybe the legalization of marijuana wasn't a good idea, and battling Rogan on that sort of stuff. It's crying out for somebody to come on and say, maybe Dana White isn't running the UFC the best. Maybe the way they exploit fighters isn't a good thing. Maybe the fact that the GFO went down is in part due to how the UFC's run, and the fact that no one's been able to run a successful fighting promotion ever since because of what they've been able to do. I'm crying out for someone to come on there and say maybe stand-up comedy isn't the most important form of entertainment in the world. That's really what is needed. But Rogan doesn't do that anymore. He seems to have people on that agree with him or that kind of, rub his balls and shit, which is super annoying. So at least with Douglas Murray, we did get that. So big up Blood Clot DG. Big up DG. Big up Blood Clot DM. Big up Blood Clot DM. We love him. And hopefully, off the back of this mocking, Douglas Murray gets another podcast and claps back, or Rogan has him back on again for a round 2 with Dave Smith. I'd love to see that. Or let's have 2, because I think isn't Gad Sad pro-Israel? Let's have Gad Sad and Douglas Murray versus Rogan and fucking what's his face and Dave Smith. Let's do that, bro. Let's do that, please, for the love of God. But hey, what do I know?